So you hire tailors, you train them, you invest your time and your energy in them, and just when it seems like they're starting to deliver reasonable results, they just up and leave. Sounds familiar, right? Come closer, let's discuss strategies to help you retain your tailors. Hello and welcome back to the Business Behind the Craft podcast. I am your host Umo, and today we're going to be diving deep into a topic that literally hits very close to home for most Nigerian fashion business owners, and it is high employee turnover. In this episode, we'll discuss why the turnover rate in this industry is so high, what it is actually costing your business, and what we as business owners can actually do to retain great talent. Let's get right into it. So first off, what is employee turnover rate? Employee turnover rate basically means how frequently people are leaving your organization. It could be measured monthly, quarterly, or even annually. Now, to tackle this issue of high employee turnover, you need to first understand why employees are even leaving your organization in the first instance. However, before we go straight into this one, I need you to first understand that there are certain reasons why employees are leaving your organization, which is actually beyond your own control. So you need to be kind to yourself when you're making this assessment, so that you don't blame yourself for things that are actually outside your own control. Some of the reasons that are outside your control that is the cost for which employees actually leaving your organization could be marriage, it could be that they are relocating, it could be that they are maybe school, or maybe IT, or maybe NYSC. These are just reasons that are actually beyond your own control. However, let's also dive deep into reasons for this high turnover rate that is actually within your own control as a leader. The first of which we would consider is unfavorable work environment. Now, this could be maybe cramped workspaces. If you offer accommodation, maybe uncomfortable accommodation. It could also be maybe toxic work environment. It could also be lack of proper tools, long work hours or extended work hours that are not compensated for, those sorts of things. The second reason we'll talk about is delayed salaries or remuneration that is not commensurate with the amount of work that they're putting in. So for example, I remember having a conversation with a tailor a while back, and he was working for one of the top fashion brands in Lagos, and he was comparing that to another fashion brand that is also a good fashion brand, maybe not as popular but good. Now, he said that the famous fashion brand, their commission rates were really low. However, because of the fact that salaries were not delayed, if 31st of the month or the end of the month would have been a Monday, because on Friday the boss knows that they're all going to be going home for the weekend, he would actually pay on that Friday, which could be maybe 28th or 29th or something like that. Because of the fact that he was assured of his salary, he knew that at the end of every month his salary was sure to come in at the right time. He preferred that organization to the other organization where the commission rates were higher. However, your salary could be delayed without explanation. And this is a family man. He wanted a situation whereby at the end of the month he has something to take to his family. He can't be away for work for maybe about 20 days of the month, and then at the end of the month his wife is asking him for maybe money for pampers for his child, and he's not able to produce it because they've not paid him at work. It didn't really make much sense. So he said he preferred the lower commission where the salary was guaranteed every end of the month, as against the higher commission rates where the salary was could be delayed for a couple of days. Now, the second reason is lack of opportunities for growth or no clear career growth path. So by reason of the fact that it's a small business, there are very limited opportunities for growth, and this is one of the reasons why employees leave, because they can't see any clear career progression path or serve as an incentive for them to actually stay. So what we have in the Nigerian fashion industry is a situation where the opportunities for growth are within the industry, not necessarily within organizations. Now let me explain. So for example, someone who just finished fashion school, now goes to an organization to work, and in that organization maybe she's taken in as an intern, just someone to sort of like assist and learn in the process. Now as she gets better, she might be moved up to the stage of a tailor, and then maybe she's offered maybe a slightly higher salary or something like that. However, she gets better within that organization. There's really no career growth process. Like it might be difficult for her to grow to that point of head tailor maybe as fast as she would expect. So her best bet is actually to go to maybe a smaller fashion house where they don't really have a very good tailor. So she goes there and she's classified as like maybe one of the good tailors in that place. So this is why I say the opportunities for career growth are within the industry, not necessarily within an organization. However, you can move from one fashion house to another. So you can move to maybe from a fashion house in, let's say, Ikorodu. You guys should not come from here. Maybe a fashion house in Ikorodu, to maybe a fashion house in Bagada, then to a fashion house in maybe Yaba, and then to a fashion house in maybe Lekki, then to a fashion house in Ikoyi, and then maybe to a luxury brand. That is literally the career progression of tailors, not necessarily that you can move from maybe level 1 tailor to level 2 tailor to level 3 tailor to level 4 tailor. So there's really no opportunities for growth. Maybe if we incorporate things like, let's say, level 1 tailor, after a while they move to level 2 tailor, after a while they move to level 3 tailor, and with all of those movements, maybe there's a bit of a salary increase that will serve as an incentive for them to stay. And then maybe after level 3 tailor, you can move to head tailor and that kind of thing. So if there's a clear career progression path, then it serves as an incentive for them to stay. Fourth reason why tailors are leaving is lack of structure, lack of defined roles and expectations, as well as bad management. Now, there's a survey that has been carried out that states that I think one of the most popular reasons for high employee turnover is bad management. So if you have like maybe a rude production manager, maybe a rude factory manager or something like that, or maybe a manager that just doesn't do well with your other factory workers, then there might be massive exits of your staff. Now, another thing, as I mentioned, is lack of structure. If there's no structure, like there are no defined roles, you're a tailor, this is what is expected of you. There are daily tasks where everybody knows, okay, this is what is expected of me today. If you don't fulfill your daily task over a period of time, there might be a deduction of your salary. If you fulfill it, then there's an incentive, there's a bonus or something like that. So if there are all of those things, clearly defined roles, clearly defined expectations, clearly defined KPIs, then everybody knows what they are doing and you're able to retain your staff, as against where there's just disorganization. People don't know what they're doing. They come in the morning, they don't know what they're starting with, especially people that are on commission. Tailors that are commissioned, they come to work in the morning, they don't know what they're supposed to do. They're asking, okay, what are we supposed to do? Maybe the production manager is not around. The boss is not accessible. They're just there waiting. Those sorts of things cause employees to just feel demotivated and they can leave. The fifth reason is low barriers to entry. Now, if you're in an industry where the barriers to entry are low, then you'd have situations where employees can just up and leave and go and start their own business. So for example, if you can get a sewing machine, sew 1 or 2 clothes for yourself, put it on your status, put it on your Instagram page, talk to your friends and your family, tell them you start making clothes, you start getting customers. So this is why I say the barriers to entry are low. Everybody feels like they can do it. Like at the initial stage, you can get your first customer really relatively easily, and you can own the full package relatively easily. So everybody just feels they can do it. So if the barriers to entry are low, then you definitely have high employee turnover rates, because once an employee feels dissatisfied, because they feel they can start out on their own, they just up and leave. Sixth reason is lack of respect or recognition. Many employees leave because they feel unseen, they feel undervalued, and so they leave. Seventh reason is work-life imbalance. Some people get dissatisfied because of the constant overtime they have to do. Literally, they don't have time for themselves, and all of those sorts of reasons. And maybe the commute to and fro work is stressing them out, it's taking a lot of their time. Maybe they are not able to do their own private things that they have to do on the side. So because of that, they up and leave. Another reason could be zero employee benefits package. We need to really talk about this. I mean, I had to do like a bit of research on this, and a couple of things we're going to talk about, so make sure that you watch till the end. Now, because unlike government jobs or other jobs where there's clear growth prospects and benefits, there's no such thing for most small Nigerian fashion houses. And so by reason of that, they can just up and leave right after you pay their salary, which is something that I've experienced. I haven't spoken about the reasons why there's high employee turnover rates in your organization. Now let's speak about what you can do to retain your tailors. One of the first things to do is hire the right people, because if you hire people that are not a good fit for your organization and wouldn't fit into your organization culture, they might start and then within the first month they realize maybe this is not the right place for me, and so they leave. Or in some cases you might even need to sack them. So first off, hire the right people. Now, in hiring the right people, make sure that you avoid overqualified people. Now, have you ever wondered why there are people who say they applied for certain jobs and the feedback that they got from HR was that they were overqualified for the job and so they weren't offered the job? Have you seen those sorts of situations? Now, the reason why those big companies don't employ people that they feel are overqualified is because at that point where they've come for the interview, they're actually desperate. And so they want to take on the job even though they know that the job is beneath them. However, over time, they start to get dissatisfied, and by reason of the fact that they are dissatisfied, they become toxic. And their toxicity can seep into the fibers of your organization such that it begins to affect other employees. Other employees also become dissatisfied because they are the ones that will now start to point out, are you really doing this? Are you really, I beg, go. This one no be my papa work. You know, all those sorts of things. They are the ones that bring all those things because they feel like that job is beneath them. So never ever employ people that you feel like are overqualified. Anything that is too good to be true is actually too good to be true. So just avoid them. Also, when you're hiring, ensure that you sort of like do a background check. Most times I found out that it's always better to hire based on recommendation. So if you're hiring maybe someone that saying, oh, this person has worked for me, however, I understand that might not be possible all the time. But in most cases, try and do your research. Like, don't just see people. This person comes and says, oh, I'm coming from maybe this luxury fashion brand that you know, and then you just like grab the person. You're not even bother to find out why did they sack the person in that organization. Did he steal? Was it because of insubordination? Is he a difficult person to work with? You don't know, you just hired the person. I remember there was one time that I was at an event for fashion designers, and there was this top fashion designer. I think he came as a speaker, as a guest speaker or something like that. And after his speech, people were introducing themselves to him, and then someone was going to introduce himself to the guy. He was like, oh, how far my guy? One of your tailor now works for me. And I'm like, how is this even an introduction? Like, I mean, why is that something that you put forward first? Like, so you're feeling privileged to employ someone who has worked with someone else. Now, do you know why he left? Do you know if before he left he stole? Like, I feel like the conversation should have been something like, oh, how far guy, you're doing an amazing job. If you wanted to bring up that topic, if you didn't have like something else to say, conversation should have gone someone like, this guy that has worked with you, how far with that guy? Because he came to me and I'm looking to employ him. What do you think about the guy? Why did he leave your organization? That's how the conversation should have gone, as against that. Remember that your tailor is working for me now. Like, I mean, why? Because I mean, if these tailors know that we're doing background checks, because a lot of them lie. Oh, I've worked with Maya Tafo, I've worked with Vicky James, I've worked with this, and it's all lies. Because at the end of the day, when you employ them, you find out that they are not even, maybe they had actually worked there, but they didn't work in the capacity that they are telling you. I think that there should be cohesion in this industry. There are people who have worked with me who have gone on to work with some other organization, and the owners of those organizations will reach out and say, how far this person said they worked with University of Cotton Draft, how was this person? It's easier that way, because first off, that employee knows that there's something at stake, as against if they just stroll into your organization, just lie, oh, I've worked with this, oh, I've worked with Larry Da Silva Jaya. You don't do background check, you just jump at them. And they know that it's like you're desperate, like they know that they are the prize, and so their behavior is not right. So I think that in hiring, make sure that you hire right. As desperate as you may be, try and do your background research, because in the end, you'll be thankful you did it. The second thing that you can do to retain your tailors is offer growth opportunities and recruit internally. Now, this might be difficult in the case of tailors because a number of them are largely uneducated. So when you want to recruit for like higher roles, for example, if your organization grows, if you now decide to maybe employ a production manager, it might be difficult to pick from the tailors because a lot of them might be largely uneducated. And as a production manager, you might need to prepare Excel sheets. You might need to do a couple of things that if the person is not educated, they might not be a good fit for that role. However, one of the things that you can do is actually try to train them. So you can send them on a training, because it's Microsoft Excel. Anybody who is sharp can pick it. Go to computer school, learn Microsoft Excel. Because these things it's not far-fetched. You are in that business, you can see, if you're sharp, you can see what needs to be done. You should be able to keep records in a way that when you're absent, people can just look at the records and know what to do. But, just create opportunities where you can actually recruit internally. Because in a situation where I was hired by a fashion house to be their production manager, and I remember that in the first couple of weeks that I worked there, it was pretty difficult because the tailors were kind of like upset, and the tailors and then the other staff, some of the admin staff, I felt like they were probably dissatisfied with the fact that they brought in someone from outside, like they recruited externally, as against they who had started with the company, sacrificed for the company and all of that. They were not being uplifted to those roles. Rather, those roles were given to people who were coming from outside, given to external candidates like myself. So I feel like that kind of creates some kind of dissatisfaction and could cause your employees to leave. So in recruiting, as much as possible, try and train them. The ones that are willing to learn, then you can reward them by promoting them to sort of like higher roles as your company grows. Now, the third thing is offer employee benefits packages. One of the major reasons why employees literally vacillate between fashion houses is because of the lack of incentive to remain loyal and build within a particular organization. Now, let's talk a bit about the Igbo apprenticeship system, because there are a couple of salient points that we can deduce from that Igbo apprenticeship system. It's basically a system where a boy learns under an oga for a period of, let's say, 5 to 7 years, during which he learns everything from sales to sourcing to customer service to inventory to even negotiation, and so much more. However, he also undertakes other roles, maybe like domestic roles within the household of his oga. However, this oga provides food, shelter, clothing with little or no salary. Now, someone who is earning, you might say he's a small boy and that's why, but small boys of nowadays also want to drive cars. But the incentive for him to stay and be loyal within that organization is the reward at the end of his freedom, or at the end of his apprenticeship, which is freedom, where his boss settle him with capital, goods, and I think in some cases some of them even rent shops for their apprentices, for their boys. So even though they are paid little, because of the incentive of that establishment, literally that settlement is the apprentice springboard into entrepreneurship. So because of that incentive, they stay for 5 to 7 years. I think some of them even 10 years. Through the house chores they have to do, they stay because at the end of the day, they know that they will be adequately remunerated or rewarded for their loyalty. Now, I did a bit of research because I am also learning. So I did a bit of research and I found out some employee benefits packages that we can actually implement to mitigate this issue of high employee turnover. And I'm going to be talking about it in a couple of minutes. However, if at this point you have not subscribed to this channel, I'm beefing you, but don't let this beef go too far. Please make sure you pause this video, subscribe. If you have not shared it with your community, make sure you share it with your community of fashion entrepreneurs, because there are a lot of fashion entrepreneurs that are dealing with this issue. So share this with them, because they're going to be learning a lot. And then hit the notification bell so you get notified when we upload a new episode. And if you're not following me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at University of Pattern Drafting on Instagram. Now let's talk about some benefits package ideas for fashion entrepreneurs. Now the first of which is job security and formal agreements. Now there should be job security. I remember when I first finished my NYC and I was looking for jobs, I remember that when I go for an interview, my dad would say, "Oh, how was the company? Does it look like a one-man business, or is it like a proper structured organization?" If I say it's a one-man business, my father would say, "Don't bother," because he always felt like one-man businesses in Nigeria are places where the boss's emotions can be very volatile, where they can just wake up one morning and say they don't want you again. And however, going forward, what we should be looking to implement in our organization is situations where there's job security, where there's formal agreements, where there are clear contracts with terms, there's clear contracts with clearly defined job descriptions, there's a defined probation period with structured feedback, where there's promotion opportunities, for example. And this is what I was saying about creating roles. You can create roles within your organization, maybe level 1 tailor, level 2 tailor, so they have a sense of like progression. So they don't feel like they are just on one spot. They have that sense that they are moving from one level to the other. Okay, they were level 1 this year, or maybe in the last 6 months in level 2. Like there's progression that can be celebrated within the organization. Second thing is flexibility and life support. Now, one of the ways that you can support your staff is school fees support stipend. So if you pay your tailors a salary of, let's say, 150K, you can actually break that down. So you can do basic salary is 100K, and then the remaining 50K, do it as bonus packages, so that they feel like there's incentive. And some of the bonus packages, you can pay those bonus packages quarterly, so the money comes to them in bulk. So for example, school fees stipend, you can accumulate that and pay that at the end of the year. So for example, if your school fees stipend is 10,000 naira per month, so at the end of the year that will be 120K. Like, it's a stipend, it's very small, like their school fees may be way more than that, but that's a support. Have that sense of that you're looking out for them. And it could be for them, maybe for those that are still in school, offer school fees stipend 10,000 naira a month at the end of the year. If they stay to the end of the year, then you get it as total package in December, where they get maybe like 120,000 to support their schooling. However, if they are married people, this could be also the same amount, 10K per month, 120K at the end of the year to support their children's schooling. So all of these sorts of things would be an incentive for them to stay longer, so that we don't have situations where tailor resumes today and then tomorrow they are gone. Another way to support them is food provision. So you can do maybe lunch on Fridays, or places where you provide accommodation. Maybe you can do a small food allowance. Could be small food allowance, maybe let's say you say 1K every day. At the end of the month, maybe it's 30K for food allowance, all of those sorts of things. So another thing is you can offer accommodation if possible. If it's not possible, you can offer a small transport allowance. So one thing that we're going to talk about is recognition and awards. Now, you can incorporate maybe Employee of the Month award, where you reward the maybe most prompt. If it's a small cash gift, or even just airtime, just something small just to recognize and reward them. Then there could be birthday gifts and celebrations, like even if it's just a small cake, or maybe there's an amount of money that you give everyone who is doing birthday. Then there could be team bonding activities. If you're not comfortable with all of these things, if it's a team bonding activity and maybe you're an introvert, you may not want to participate, you can just create that hangout opportunity for them and have them go and do their hangouts. You may not necessarily go with them, but just maybe end of the year team bonding activity, just something that just binds the team together, just makes it fun, makes it a fun environment to work in, and those sorts of things. Fourth thing that you can do is learning and growth. So you can pay for courses for them. I've had a lot of people actually pay for my courses for their staff. So upon completion of the course, if you can do this, then you'll be promoted to this, maybe level 4, from level 3 to level 4 tailor. So usually that's what it is. So maybe you can say, oh, okay, if you came in, level 1 tailor is people that are doing freehand, the joiners, and all of that. Level 2 tailors, once you graduate to at least being able to understand the basics of pattern drafting, you graduate to level 2, then you can take them for, maybe you pay for a pattern drafting course for them. If they are able to learn, and start drafting patterns, you move them to level 3, and all of that. So within your organization, there are prospects for growth, there's prospects for improvement. And as they are improving and increasing like that, you can increase your salary just slightly. It may not necessarily be bulk sums, but just increase their salary as they go, because as they are getting better, they can work better independent of you, and so you should reward them if your organization can afford it. Now, another thing to do is work related perks. So for example, 2 ownership schemes. You can do sort of like a contribution where you say, okay, there's a 2 ownership scheme. It can be part of the extra packages, not their basic salary, extra packages, where you say every single month we're contributing 10,000 to a 2 ownership scheme, and at the end of the year everybody will now have 120,000, and then maybe you can augment and say, okay, invest in whatever business you want to do, or invest in whatever machine you want to buy. Maybe if you want to buy a ring light or buy a steam iron or whatever it is, let them just be able to know that they are working and they can see what they are using their money for. That way, like, there's an incentive to sort of like work for you. It shows that you're looking out for them. So these are things that we can do. By the way, I'm also learning. Another thing that we can do under work related perks is free or discounted fabrics or clothing for personal use. So if they're buying clothes for personal, if they're making clothes for their person, maybe they're getting married or something, it could be free or it could be discounted for personal use. There are incentives, there are perks of working with you. The 6th thing we can do is financial benefits. So salary advance options with clear terms. Very, very clear terms, because I know some people can be very, very funny. So monthly performance bonuses. Every now and again, we usually give our staff money. So sometimes you can just say, I'll take for the weekend. So all of those take for the weekend money, put it together and give it as performance bonuses, as against just giving randomly. So there's now an incentive. Another thing that you can do is pay them for overtime. Now, another thing to do, which is quite important, is health and wellness benefits. I have not researched this, but I know that there are many providers that cater to small businesses. So you can do like a very basic HMO plan. These are the things that all of these bigger companies do, that even though maybe some of your siblings that are not necessarily satisfied with the job, they stay on the job because of these incentives. So as we wrap up today's episode, one thing is clear, and it is that employees of today have quite a number of options. There are many fashion houses that are looking to employ, and we poach on your tailors at the slightest opportunity. Employees care more about the quality of life you will be offering them, as against just working for you based on loyalty, or whatever it is the reason that you think they should work for you. So it's best to actually create quality work environment, quality life, quality opportunities, quality reward systems that will serve as incentives for them to stay with you. If not, you would always grapple with high employee turnover rates or high turnover rates of your tailors. If you found this episode helpful, which I am sure that you did, make sure that you subscribe, share with your fellow fashion entrepreneurs, like this video, and make sure you hit the notification bell so that you get notified once we upload a new episode. And also share the strategies that you've used to retain tailors in your organization, strategies that have actually worked for you, in the comment section, because I would love to hear your feedback. I mean, we are all learning. Thank you for listening to the Business Behind the Craft podcast. Until next time, keep learning, keep building, and keep growing.